President Bill Clinton of the United States is forecasting China's impending transformation in the year 2000. One party governs China. Citizens' fundamental rights to free speech and religious expression are indeed violated. However, whether someone likes it or not, political empowerment and economic innovation will always go hand in hand. He makes the case that increasing trade with China is a wise move, since it will facilitate the expansion of the internet in that country, and that will support its citizens in their democratic struggle. The impact of the internet on America is well known. At the speed of light, I can absorb knowledge from any other location. Consider the impact it could have on China. Furthermore, the Chinese Communist Party is powerless to stop it. China has undoubtedly been attempting to censor the internet. I wish you luck. It's similar to attempting to affix Jell-O to the wall. Bill Clinton, however, was mistaken. More than 1 billion Chinese citizens use the internet to browse, purchase, stream, and talk these days. Additionally, some of the most valuable tech companies in the world are based in China. However, it is entirely under the control of the Chinese Communist Party, and it's more powerful than before. What steps did China take to create its own internet? Why didn't it result in change? Beijing is currently experiencing rapid change. 2,000 students marched through Beijing's streets in the dead of night. In the streets of Beijing, there was a genuine sense of resistance. The Chinese Communist Party was in crisis in 1989. In Beijing's Tiananmen Square, thousands of students were demonstrating for democracy, greater liberties, and freedom of speech. However, the party takes action instead of compromising. Up to 26 individuals are dead, maybe I should say 2,600. The party survived, but they were scared of another protest. They therefore saw the internet as a major danger when it arrived in China. Technology would only help those who are against authoritarianism, according to the general agreement. According to journalist James Griffiths, the party was nevertheless certain that it could manage it. As more Chinese people connected to the internet, they had greater access to information, which allowed criticism to reach a wider audience. Therefore, the party put filters in servers and routers as well as other physical infrastructure as it started to extend the internet throughout the nation. Shortly after it is posted, these filters can identify and remove content that the government finds objectionable. However, Chinese nationals could circumvent them by utilizing code or a VPN, which can make their computers appear to be outside of China. Because Chinese has many homonyms, characters that sound the same but are actually different, the language is also particularly well suited for anti-censorship efforts. Xi Jinping, for example, can be written without the typical characters used for his name. It sounds like the Chinese word, but you can also write it in Latin characters. June 4th, or May 35th, is a topic of conversation. The party started using thousands of actual people to snoop around and report this type of coded language. Although a Chinese citizen criticizing the government cannot be stopped by these interlocking layers of censorship, the party may stop it from spreading and make it very difficult for anybody to mobilize against it if it detects it early. Although there are undoubtedly a lot of delicate subjects on the Chinese internet, one of the most delicate subjects is not a particular political one. It's mass action of any kind. The subject or the reason is irrelevant. They oppose people organizing. If they do, the party has the ability to identify the original user and contact law enforcement. Many dissidents have been driven to leave China as a result of this digital police force, which has resulted in thousands of Chinese individuals being jailed for making online complaints. The party created the internet to prevent criticism from getting out of hand and leading to a backlash. The Great Firewall is designed to allow people to have information and strongly anti-government opinions, but it doesn't really matter if they are powerless to change them. As influential tech firms started to grow the internet, the party managed to gain control over them as well. Under one condition, the party allowed Google to operate inside the Great Firewall when they built a Chinese-language search engine in 2006. It has to abide by the regulations. Tanks crushing a protest in 1989, for example, could not be found during a search for Tiananmen Square. It could only depict a serene Beijing public square. There were no items regarding the Dalai struggle for independence that came up when searching for Tibet. Only majestic mountains could be seen. The party picked a search engine called Baidu, despite Google's agreement. Due to its Chinese ownership, it was more motivated to abide with the party's censorship regulations. The party started restricting Google's growth in order to safeguard it. And when Google departed China in 2010, Baidu was almost the same and held a larger share of the Chinese market, demonstrating to the party that it could develop a tech sector that complied with its regulations inside the firewall. They were completely excluded when social media came around. Given the possible dangers, they never trusted Facebook to attempt running a business in China. Therefore, you obtain a domestic alternative by banning them. They initially appeared to be imitations of Western platforms. Facebook was similar to Renren. Weibo was comparable to Twitter. Youku was comparable to YouTube. However, in a market with a population of over 1 billion, they may easily expand into massive platforms without any outside competition. The party decided to force them to regulate their own content as they started to produce an increasing amount of it. The privatization of censorship in China has been one of the major breakthroughs of the past 15 years. Because internet companies must pay for human filters, the government saves a ton of money. It also promotes innovation in the field of control and monitoring. Consider Tencent. China's WeChat app is used by 1 billion people every day for everything from shopping to payments to messaging. Tencent has used thousands of automated human and even artificial intelligence sensors to ensure that all of the information is legal. While allowing its companies to innovate, the party can stop any attempt to organize against it from spreading by forcing tech companies to censor themselves. I find ByteDance intriguing since it operates in one of the world's most regulated online spaces. However, it produced TikTok, one of the most inventive items in recent years. How can that be? There are 1.3 billion people in China. Approximately 90% of those are available online. Even in this enclosed garden, there is intense competition, which spurs creativity. However, they have done a pretty good job of creating content for their home market while staying within political bounds. The internet has facilitated the planning of large-scale demonstrations worldwide, some of which have overthrown authoritarian regimes. Before the broad internet, the Tiananmen Square protests were the largest mainland movement the Chinese Communist Party had to deal with. In my opinion, the firewall has been a huge success, since China has failed to use the internet as a key tool for organizing political action. Protests against China's stringent COVID lockdown restrictions did occur in 2022, but it was a special case. The censors were overloaded because COVID was the topic of conversation. It's crucial to remember that they managed to contain it in roughly 48 hours. Nothing more than a few days of street rage was ever permitted to develop from it. China has been attempting to impose internet restrictions. Since the beginning of the internet, the Chinese Communist Party has not been confronted with any movement on the mainland that has been as significant as the demonstrations that took place at Tiananmen Square. On the other hand, if you consider the internet to be a significant instrument for organizing political action, then it is not the case in China. I believe that this is something that should be regarded as a significant achievement for the firewall. There were demonstrations that took place in 2022 against China's stringent COVID lockdown measures. Nevertheless, this was a one-of-a-kind circumstance. The censors were unable to keep up with the conversation since everyone was talking about COVID. It is essential to emphasize that they were able to bring it under control within around 48 hours.